Hey everyone, how are you? I hope you had a great spring break and a nice Easter with your family. I'm so sad that we're not back in school yet, but I wanted to start this week off because, on a good note, if we were going back to school, this would be the time that we'd start learning about the ocean. And when we do this, I always start off with whales. So I have some different books here that I'm going to read this week. This one's Dear Mr. Blueberry. I have another one that's called It's a Blue Whale. Is a blue whale the biggest whale there is? And then I have another one, just a nonfiction book about whales. I have a lot of other books that normally we would have in the classroom, but since we're not there, that's not an option for us. So before we start though, like we've done with other nonfiction topics such as penguins and polar bears and bats and apples and pumpkins, I want us to start with what we already know. So what I'm going to have you do is just grab a plain piece of paper and I want you to break it into thirds. So 3 equal sections. So I'll do that first. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to put it into thirds. They don't have to be perfect, but enough where we have enough room, a good enough amount of space to write. Okay. In the first section, we're going to put the letter K, or you can write the word no. Okay. This is going to be what we already know. And that's what we're going to start right now. Okay. So what I want you to do is I want you to press pause, take a minute, and I want you to write down 3 things in the no section of what you might already know about a whale. Now, maybe you don't know anything about a whale, and that's okay. But I want you to think for just a minute of anything that you might know. Maybe you know just one thing. Maybe you know 2 things. Go ahead and take a moment and write down anything that you know about a whale, and I'm going to do the same thing. Okay, so I took a moment and wrote down some things that I know about whales. I'll share them with you. If you want to write these down, you can. So the first thing that I put on here was, again, I'm not using complete sentences. This is just an organizer. So I wrote down that whales can swim. I know whales can swim. And again, I'm using my bullet marks. I know that there are different kinds of whales. I might not know the names or how many different kinds, but I know there's different kinds of whales. And I know that there's different sizes of whales. I'm not sure which one's the biggest or which one's the smallest, but I do know that there's different sizes. Okay. Now, which then brings me to the middle one. And I was kind of asking some questions as I was writing this down. So in the middle section, you probably know what we're going to write. I'm going to put a W, a big W, and the W stands for what? And I'm going to put a question mark, okay? What questions do I have about whales? What do I want to learn about a whale? So I'm going to go ahead and, if you want, I'm going to do this with you. The first question that I have is, I kind of want to know, what do whales eat? So I'm going to take my pencil or my pen. I'm going to write, what do whales eat? And as I listen to my facts, as we read our different stories, I guarantee we're gonna hear some different things that whales eat. Okay. Another question that I have, I'm going to use another bullet, is kind of refers back to one of the things that I know, is I want to know how many types of whales. And again, I'm not really using complete sentences because this isn't something where we're using complete sentences. We're just referencing questions. So as good readers, we know what to listen for when we're reading stories. Okay, so how many types of whales? Okay, another question that I have, and I'm not even going to make it a question or sentence. I'm just going to write biggest / longest. I want to know what is the biggest or the longest whale in the ocean. I'm curious. I want to know what that is. Okay. And the same thing, I'm going to put another bullet, and I want to know what's the smallest whale. And notice again, now I'm putting question marks after each one because these are questions that I want answered. And as I read my stories and my nonfiction text this week, we will have an opportunity to try and answer these questions. Now, what I want you to do right now is I want you to think for just a moment, and you should have some extra space here at the bottom. And I want you to think for just a moment of some other questions that maybe you want to know about a whale. Maybe you want to know what color they are, or maybe you want to know how they breathe underwater. I'm not sure. Maybe these are questions that you want to write down. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes and maybe add 1 or 2 more questions, and then we'll move on from there. If you need to, go ahead and press pause. All right, so I hope you were able to maybe add 1 or 2 more questions more. What you're going to do in the very last column now, and this is the column that we're going to fill out as we go throughout the week, is we're going to add the L, and the L is for learned. Okay, so if you want to write the word learned in our very last column, L-E-A-R-N-E-D. Okay. And as we read our text this week, you are going to continually hear facts about whales. Now, normally in the classroom, I'd have a big whale up on the board and we'd add whale facts as we read each day, but we don't have that right now. So as I read some different stories and as you read some different texts this week that I'll post on the Class Dojo site, I want you to list down some different facts that you learned about whales. Okay? All right. Okay, boys and girls, so I'm going to start this week off with one of my favorite stories. It's called Dear Mr. Blueberry. And some of you have actually been writing letters to Miss Holton in the mail, and I've gotten them, and I've gotten to respond to you and send them back in the mail. This story is similar. It's about a little girl, and she has a teacher named Mr. Blueberry. And she writes to him about a whale. Now, although this story is fiction, meaning that it's not real, you will hear a lot of facts about whales that are true. So at the end of the story, or as I'm reading, I want you to listen for those facts, because at the end, then you'll get a chance to write down some of those facts that you've learned and maybe add those to the L column as we go along. Okay? So this is called Dear Mr. Blueberry by Simon James. And if at any time I'm reading the story and you hear a fact and you want to write it down before you forget it, feel free to press pause, write that fact down, and then press play again. Dear Mr. Blueberry, I love whales very much, and I think I saw one in my pond today. Please send me some information on whales, as I think he might be hurt. Love, Emily. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure that whales don't live in little tiny ponds. Dear Emily, here are some details about whales. I don't think you'll find it was a whale you saw, because whales don't live in ponds, but in salt water. Yours sincerely, your teacher, Mr. Blueberry. Dear Mr. Blueberry, I am now putting salt into the pond every day before breakfast, and last night I saw my whale smile. I think he is feeling better. Do you think he might be lost? Love, Emily. Dear Emily, please don't put any more salt in the pond. I'm sure your parents won't be pleased. I'm afraid there can't be a whale in your pond because whales don't get lost. They always know where they are in the oceans. Yours sincerely, Mr. Blueberry. It's a pretty interesting fact that whales don't get lost. Dear Mr. Blueberry, tonight I am very happy because I saw my whale jump up and spurt lots of water. He looked blue. Does this mean he might be a blue whale? Love, Emily. P.S. What can I feed him with? I wonder if she's just imagining or if it's really happening. Dear Emily, blue whales are blue, and they eat tiny shrimp-like creatures that live in the sea. However, I must tell you that a blue whale is much too big to live in your pond. Yours sincerely, Mr. Blueberry. P.S. Perhaps it is a blue goldfish. Dear Mr. Blueberry, last night I read your letter to my whale, and afterwards he let me stroke his head. Now, stroke is a fancy word for pet. It was very exciting. I secretly took him some crunched up cornflakes and breadcrumbs, and this morning I looked in the pond and they were all gone. I think I shall call him Arthur. What do you think? Love, Emily. Do you think the whale really lives in the pond? Dear Emily, I must point out to you quite forcibly now that in no way could a whale live in your pond. You may not know that whales are migratory. It's a fancy word, which means they travel great distances each day. I am sorry to disappoint you. Yours sincerely, Mr. Blueberry. Dear Mr. Blueberry, tonight I am a little sad. Arthur has gone. I think your letter made sense to him, and he has decided to be migratory again. Love, Emily. Dear Emily, please don't be too sad. It really was impossible for a whale to live in your pond. Perhaps when you are older, you would like to sail the oceans studying and protecting whales. Yours sincerely, Mr. Blueberry. And you see all the pictures of the whales that she has in her room? Dear Mr. Blueberry, it has been the happiest day. I went to the beach and you'll never guess, but I saw Arthur. I called to him and he smiled. I knew it was Arthur because he let me stroke his head. I gave him some of my sandwich. And then we said goodbye. I shouted that I loved him very much, and I hope you don't mind. I said you loved him too. Love, Emily and Arthur. The end. So I'm not sure about you, but I heard some different facts about whales that although it was kind of a silly story, there was definitely a few facts that I could write in my section here. So what I want you to do is I want you to take a moment after this video, and you can rewatch it again if you need to, and I want you to try and list at least 2 or 3 facts that you learned about whales from this story. And then maybe at the end of the week when we do a live video, we can talk about the different things that we heard in the story. Okay? So again, if you need to go back and you need to listen to the story again, feel free to go back and press play, rewind. And then tomorrow we'll listen to some more stories or some more facts that we can add, and we'll go from there. Have a great day.